taught me very well is, don't wear your reputation, don't wear your accolades, don't wear your...
Who could ever make Michael Jordan feel pressure? The man who turned competition into art, who never backed down, who once played through a fever and still dominated even he had moments when strength came from respect, not fear. Few remember how Larry Bird's calm intelligence made a young Jordan rethink the meaning of control, how Joe Dumars' discipline forced him to change his entire footwork, or how Gary Payton's defense turned every dribble into a chess move. There were nights when Hakeem Olajuwon's balance seemed untouchable, and days when Shaquille O'Neal's force reminded him that time was undefeated. These weren't just opponents, they were the rare men who challenged his perfection. They made him sharper, colder, wiser. At 61, when Jordan looks back, he doesn't talk about numbers or trophies, he talks about these 5 names, the ones that tested his mind as much as his body. Because greatness isn't about domination, it's about the few who make you better simply by standing in front of you. And for Michael Jordan, that lesson began one night in Boston, against a man who already understood what winning truly meant. It began in Boston Garden, the loudest place in basketball, where the air felt heavier and every shot seemed to echo forever. Michael Jordan was still young, all fire and speed, ready to take on the world. But Larry Bird didn't play the game with emotion, he played it like a quiet assassin. He didn't need to jump higher or run faster, he controlled the floor with intelligence, anticipation, and a kind of stillness that unsettled everyone. In that 1986 playoff series, Jordan exploded for over 60 points, yet every time he looked up, Bird was already 2 plays ahead, calmly directing the Celtics like a conductor guiding an orchestra. Bird never shouted, never celebrated wildly, he just punished every mistake. For Jordan, it wasn't about losing, it was about being outthought. That night, he realized that talent could win games, but intellect built dynasties. Bird taught him that the most dangerous player in the world is the one who never rushes, who sees every angle before the ball even moves. Years later, Jordan would say it wasn't the defeat that stayed with him, but the lesson how to control chaos, how to turn emotion into rhythm. In Boston, facing Bird, Jordan didn't just meet a rival, he met the idea of perfection in disguise. If Larry Bird taught Jordan patience, Joe Dumars taught him humility. Among the bruisers and enforcers of the Detroit Pistons, Dumars stood apart, silent, analytical, and relentless. He didn't need to foul hard or talk trash like the others. He just studied every habit Jordan had. The first step, the shoulder fake, the hesitation, Dumars learned them all and dismantled them one by one. Game after game, he made Jordan earn every shot. When the rest of the bad boys played with violence, Dumars played with precision. He never fell for the pump fake, never lost balance, and always met Jordan at the perfect angle. There were nights when Jordan would score plenty, but even in victory, he knew Dumars had made him work for every inch. That quiet respect grew over time. Jordan would later say that Joe Dumars was the hardest defender he ever faced, not because he was stronger, but because he never broke character. He never let emotion control him. Against Dumars, Jordan learned to master his dribble, to time his jump shot at the smallest opening, and to wait until discipline cracked the defense. Their battles were not wars of anger, but of focus. 2 craftsmen testing limits in silence. In those matchups, Jordan didn't just beat a man, he beat the version of himself that once believed raw talent was enough. There was one man Michael Jordan never faced in the finals, yet he always spoke of him with a different kind of respect: Hakeem Olajuwon. The dream wasn't built like most centers. He was elegance wrapped in power, balance carved into motion. While others used brute force, Hakeem used rhythm, a dancer's footwork in a 7-foot frame. Jordan watched from afar during his first retirement, as Olajuwon led Houston to 2 championships, controlling games not with noise but with timing, vision, and grace. When they met in regular season battles, Jordan knew instantly that this was no ordinary matchup. Every fake, every spin from Hakeem felt like poetry that couldn't be copied. It wasn't intimidation, it was awe. Jordan realized that true greatness could exist in another form, one that didn't need volume or spotlight. For every fierce drive Jordan had, Olajuwon had a counter rooted in calm precision. Both men shared the same hunger for mastery, yet expressed it differently: Jordan through fire, Hakeem through serenity. Facing him was like staring into a mirror of control, the version of greatness that didn't need rage to dominate. Years later, when people asked who could have beaten his Bulls, Jordan smiled and said, maybe Houston, maybe Hakeem. It wasn't doubt, it was acknowledgement. Even the greatest scorer of all time understood that perfection could take many shapes, and one of them wore number 34 in red and white. By the mid-90s, Michael Jordan had become the symbol of dominance. Yet in the 1996 finals, he met a guard who refused to bow. Gary Payton wasn't just a defender, he was a strategist with a motor that never stopped. He chased Jordan full court, talking constantly, testing every nerve and every breath. Most players were intimidated by Jordan's stare. Payton wasn't. He treated the court like a chessboard, forcing Jordan to play every move with care. There were games where Jordan missed shots he normally made, where he looked at Payton and nodded, not in anger, but in recognition. Payton studied him the way Jordan once studied Bird and Dumars, taking pride in every small victory, in every forced hesitation. The series became a mental war fought at a whisper's distance. Jordan adjusted, shifted to post-ups, found teammates earlier, used screens more wisely. He didn't overpower Payton, he outlasted him. But what lingered wasn't the win, it was the memory of someone who never gave him a moment's rest. In later interviews, Jordan rarely praised opponents, yet when Payton's name came up, he smirked and said, "He made me work." For a man who thrived on control, that single sentence was the ultimate compliment. Against Gary Payton, Jordan didn't just defend his legacy, he proved that even the greatest player must sometimes slow down, think deeper, and respect the game's most relentless minds. When Michael Jordan returned from retirement, the league had changed. A new generation was rising, led by a giant who made the rim look fragile, Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq wasn't just big, he was unstoppable. Every dunk shook the floor, every drive demanded double coverage. For the first time, Jordan faced a player who didn't just challenge him physically but forced him to think about time itself. Shaq represented youth, raw energy, the future Jordan once embodied. During those clashes between the Bulls and the Magic, Jordan could no longer win by pure dominance. He had to become the conductor again, using intelligence over instinct, movement over muscle. He slowed the pace, trusted spacing, and let the triangle offense flow through every teammate. Watching Shaq, Jordan saw what it meant to be the next in line, unstoppable, fearless, and hungry. But he also understood something deeper: strength without wisdom fades. After losing to Orlando in 1995, Jordan rebuilt his body, his focus, and his will, returning the next season sharper than ever. When they met again, it was Jordan who dictated every rhythm. Yet he never dismissed Shaq. He called him a force of nature, knowing that one day, that power would define a new era. Facing O'Neal, Jordan learned the hardest truth of all: that greatness must evolve or it disappears. Looking back now, Michael Jordan doesn't talk about the championships first. He talks about the men who made him sharper. Larry Bird taught him that the mind wins before the body moves. Joe Dumars reminded him that silence can be stronger than talk. Hakeem Olajuwon showed him that grace and precision can rule the paint without anger. Gary Payton forced him to think deeper, to play chess instead of war. And Shaquille O'Neal reminded him that power belongs to the next generation, and respect is the only bridge between eras. These five weren't just opponents, they were lessons. Each encounter carved another layer into Jordan's legend, shaping the man behind the trophies. At 61, when he speaks of them, his voice carries no rivalry, only gratitude. Because greatness is never born alone, it's built by those who challenge it, test it, and sometimes shake it to the core. Every legend needs its mirror. And for Michael Jordan, those mirrors had names, faces, and moments that time will never erase.